Hey everyone, welcome to Business Aspirin. I'm your host, Clint Junell. And today I have with me Tyler Junell. And Tyler and I are going to talk a little bit about the business aspirin process and what that's going to look like and what all we're trying to accomplish by relaunching the Business Aspirin podcast. Tyler, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah,
So
glad to be here.
obviously there is a relationship there because we both share the last name. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, yeah. I like to tell people I'm the nepotism hire. I like to pretend that I actually do bring something to the table. I'm an MBA grad. Been in marketing and sales for a long time. Semi new to home service businesses, but I've been doing that at this point for about 4 years as well. So at some point, I gotta stop saying I'm new to that.
Yeah, sure. And you grew up around because of my family being in the home service business for forever. Kind of led you into that, and the opportunity for you to transition into this occurred primarily because of COVID, right? So talk about how you got into the home service business.
Sure. Yeah. So before I was in home services, I was in fundraising for a university. I was helping lead one of the colleges on campus in some of their advancement initiatives. It requires a lot of travel. That was kind of tough to do during COVID and the years subsequently after. And at the same time, I kind of fell victim to kind of the homebody nature that came with COVID to a lot of it. I got to spend a lot
Sure.
of time at home with my wife and dogs, doing my work from there, having those sorts of conversations. And then when it was time to, you know, have to get back out on the road pretty frequently, that wasn't as exciting to me anymore. You become accustomed to getting to be around your loved ones all the time. And then when somebody asks you to spend a lot of time away from them, you kind of don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, and that's a tough gig, right? So that industry had moved back to okay, everybody's got to start traveling again, be in the office,
Mhm.
do the things that are required to go see people on the fundraising side, and so this opportunity opened up. So where are you currently? Where do you live?
I'm in Oklahoma City. I'm managing our Mr. Restore office there, which is our restoration company. And then I'm leading the marketing for Job-Dox as well remotely.
Okay, and you do the marketing on Mr. Restore side as well
Correct.
to help navigate some of that online. So you've got some knowledge and experience in helping service industry companies actually be able to understand what's required to grow because you've done some of that for Mr. Restore in the Oklahoma City market.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. And so for those of you who don't know, I run our Dallas office of Mr. Restore, and this is a company that we started 16 years ago, I guess, at this point. And we've been running it for quite a while. And Tyler came on to do this work in Oklahoma post COVID to try to, navigate some new normal and be able to, have this quality of life that he was trying to seek. And so we had that happen. So we've had several people ask about Business Aspirin and what happened to Business Aspirin because we had been running that podcast for a while and had a bunch of good episodes. And the point of the Business Aspirin podcast was to have business owners on and talk about the pains that they were experiencing. So we'd have these conversations and we would be able to take little nuggets of information that they would give us and dig into those a little bit more in questions and be able to provide that online as a source for other entrepreneurs or guys deciding to jump into entrepreneurship, how they could navigate some of those pains without actually having to experience them themselves. So, talk to me a little bit about the relaunch of Business Aspirin and why we're doing this and what we're trying to accomplish and what we hope to get out of relaunching Business Aspirin.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, the reason we're relaunching Business Aspirin is that there's more to learn and there's more to say, right? Every day, more and more home service businesses start up. People buy home service businesses from a generation that's rapidly leaving the industry, reaching retirement age. And while the people who own the businesses currently understand some of these problems, the people who are just entering the market really don't. Um, you really need a lot of information to be able to do any home service business work, effectively. And the more we can provide upfront, the better for them in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's really, I mean, I think you hit it perfectly. What we're trying to do is be of value, right? Like one of the things that we say is we like helping. And that's one of our statements and mottos for Mr. Restore is that we like helping. And I think that permeates all the way through everything. So the initial launch of Business Aspirin literally was just to try to help other entrepreneurs avoid the struggles and pains that come along with jumping both feet in. Most of the time, if someone's starting a business, they've come from that industry and they've been a technician or they've been something in that restoration space or HVAC space or electrical, whatever they did. And they enjoy that work and they decided they're going to be able to do this on their own. And so they jump off into it. And typically you hit a wall. You run into some problems and in a lot of cases don't know how to navigate that. And not being able to navigate the problems is significant. And so what happens in a lot of cases, the mentality of the entrepreneur is, well, I don't want to ask any questions of somebody because it's hard for me to ask questions and get help. I don't want to talk to my competition because talking to the competition is probably detrimental to, my own business. And so they fail to actually reach out and get the help that they need. And we want to be able to provide this. And this is something that we're going to be doing and recording. And, this podcast version is 100% free. Nobody has to pay to come watch this podcast. This is just something that we're offering incentives and knowledge from other people that are honestly even way smarter than we are in the space to be able to help entrepreneurs grow and develop and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Hopefully, we'll have a lot of guests that are a lot smarter than we are. That would be really helpful for the
It
audience.
doesn't take much in my case, right? They don't have to be very smart to be way smarter than me. It's just part of the process. But yeah, we've got a couple of really great guys lined up. We also have some of the past podcasts still loaded to the channel, right? They're loaded to our current Job-Dox channel, which you guys can find. And maybe when this one goes out, we can send a link somewhere if we email this one out to anyone. But there's going to be ways that you can get involved as well, right? So if somebody is a business owner and they want to have a conversation with us and be a part of this podcast, we'd love to have them here. So we could coordinate with you to get with us and we kind of, obviously we're gonna have to vet you out a little bit. Some of you we know and we'd love to have you on. Some of you we have no idea who you are. So we have to make sure you're not going to show up and you rip your shirt off and do crazy things on a podcast. So, but we would love to have you join us if you want to be a part of this podcast and got a list of guys lined up right now to start doing this. So we're going to start launching this show over the next several weeks and be able to have a lot of content out. Do you have a target right now, Tyler? Like, do we have a target on we're going to do one a week to launch? And when are we starting the launch?
Yeah, so over the next probably month, you should start seeing content on our channel, weekly podcasts, as well as some additional videos that are just tips and tricks of the trade that aren't really in a podcast setting, more of a long form lesson.
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about. In some case, there are some things that we're trying to accomplish as the podcast, and one of those things is being able to help people see and understand those pain points and understand the value of processes and systems and things of that nature. And so, a lot of times things come up about those. Like you have conversations regularly with others about processes and how that helps and value. So talk a little bit about, what we anticipate seeing in some of these conversations and, what we hope we're going to be able to, resolve at some level.
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a bunch of resources at our disposal that we'd love to share with people. I think the flagship resource that we have is our software, Job-Dox, which is the presenting sponsor of Business Aspirin. Really, kind of throughout the industry, there's not a lot of customizable tools to help businesses run. There's a lot of tools available, but you kind of have to fit yourself inside a box. We're one of the major tools and features that we have with Job-Dox is that it's an entirely custom software for each company, right? We've built out some frameworks of the way it looks, some of the reports it builds, those sorts of things. But when you sit down and you think about your business, a lot of times you think, I might just have to build my own software, right? Job-Dox has taken that need away, right? We do that for you. Those frameworks are there, but the functionality and structure of how the system operates is entirely your company, right? And so that's a resource that we're trying to introduce to more people. We've got a good customer base right now. People are using it who are growing their business with it. But that's really kind of the major feature of Business Aspirin is here's all of these lessons on how your business can operate better, and here's a tool that can help you actually implement those processes.
Sure. And a lot of it's going to be about Job-Dox because we've seen the reality of what we can do to help somebody grow, right? We've got proven examples of that. But there are other tools that we'll look at too, right? Like as Mr. Restore, we operate off of the EOS system.
Mhm.
So we have business process system that we use to have our regular meetings and find out what do we need as a company. And we'll talk about some of that. Um, we may talk at some level and bring on somebody that is asset tracking and GPS in
Mhm.
all of this. So this is not going to just be limited to uh, strict conversations with other business owners and what they find, nor is it just a marketing piece for Job-Dox. This truly is about how do we help you as an entrepreneur or as someone that's leading a business, whether you're the entrepreneur or not, the operations manager, whatever your title might be, to see these pain points, avoid them, and maybe in some cases create processes in advance of those pain points so that you don't have to run into those the same way that some of us have as entrepreneurs trying to grow. And like technology is just amazing in what it's doing now, right? Like the
Sure.
reality of some of the AI that's happening and what it is able to accomplish on behalf of business owners is unbelievable. So there are a lot of companies that are going to get left behind, unfortunately. I think a lot of people are going to fail to embrace technology. And what's the market saying about those who you know shun or stiff arm the technology? What's the market saying is going to take place for those companies?
Well, they're going to get replaced. That's just the reality of the situation, right? If you don't operate as the most efficient version of your company, somebody else is going to beat you to that customer. They're going to get the job done better, quicker. They're going to make more money on it, and eventually you're not going to exist. That's you know, it's kind of a harsh reality, but it is a fact, right? That's the way the market works. You're constantly evolving, or you're constantly being left behind, and that's
Yeah,
that's true of every industry, not just home services,
sure.
um, but it's really prevalent in home services right now as more and more technology enters the space and more private equity enters the space who are really, really focused on that efficiency.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those things, right? Let's talk about the other technology. Like there are some decent products out there that are not Job-Docs, but then there are some that require you pay for a software platform and then you have to have 16 other things integrated to it through Zapier to try to make it actually work for what you're trying to accomplish. And that seems inefficient to me as an entrepreneur, as a person. I feel like that's not the best use of my time nor resources, truthfully. So when you said Job-Docs is customizable, then you're it's built to try to avoid having to have 17 different products to try to accomplish one thing. So talk a little bit about what that looks like in terms of some of the other pieces that are in the market, other products that are in the market, what some of those products may or may not do, and then what's the Job-Docs alternative to that.
Sure. Yeah, so I don't want to name names of any other softwares,
Sure.
but I know for a fact that there are several of the softwares out there that promote things like what we call auto tasks, but it's really automation built out through their system. Actually has to happen through Zapier or Zapier, however you want to pronounce it. And each automation requires a zap, which means that you've got to run something through Zapier to make something happen back in your own platform. That costs you more money in the long run because Zapier is not free, right?
Sorry.
Job-Dox, as far as I know, is the only software on the market that currently does all of the automation in-house. We built out our own technologies, our own processes for it. And so you don't need an integration anywhere else to make the system operate for your business. Similarly, there are other tools on the market that aren't direct competitors with us, but that other companies may have to use if they don't have an all-encompassing FSM. And when I say FSM, I mean field service management tool. Things like time cards, those are all built in house through Job-Dox. Remote document signing, unlimited media storage. We've got advanced reporting tools. We've got a dispatch panel. We've got a brand new scheduler that's coming out. Really, kind of any tool that you need. Whereas maybe 15 years ago, or even 6 or 7 years ago, you'd have to have, like you mentioned, a dozen different softwares to make your company work. Those have all been brought internally into one tool for you, and really the only integration that I would recommend would probably be something like your QuickBooks, right? Because Job-Dox is
Sure.
not an accounting tool. It can help you with a lot of the job costing and a lot of the margin work and all that sort of stuff. But really, from a high level accounting, you probably want that QuickBooks integration. But that's a two-way integration with us. So anything you put in either software gets pushed back and forth to each other. So you really only have to do the work once.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about, like you said, automations. What's an example of an automation that's valuable in the service industry?
Sure. Well, so I think for business owners who are trying to be business owners as opposed to the day-to-day operators of their company, the best example would be anytime a job's added to the system, we can set it up where your project manager or your lead technician, whatever that looks like for your company, is notified that there's a new job in the system and it's time for them to go get a work authorization signed or do their initial investigation, whatever that process looks like for you as an individual company. The system takes and notifies your staff of their role as that project reaches the time for them to do their responsibility, right? So you don't have to remember to assign a daily schedule to someone because it generates that for your staff every single day without you having to do anything.
So it's one of the efficiency things.
Mm-hmm.
Like it streamlines both your time frame, but also what I used to always say is shit slipping through the cracks.
Sure.
Right? It prevents the failure of the human touch to make things happen because it's going to automate as much of that as possible,
Yes.
which
Yeah,
is great.
exactly.
Okay. So what other things do you think are important for people to hear about what we're going to try to accomplish in Business Aspirin over the next several months when we keep rocking this out? Like what is it that you've heard people talking about or that you would like to see us accomplish as we do this podcast?
Sure. Well, so for me, I think it's really important that not only we're providing this free resource through the podcast, but that the audience also knows that we do actually have coaching opportunities available for all of them. We built out an entirely online school platform called the 4 Million Method, where we teach you how to build a business that generates $4 million in annual recurring revenue. And then we have some more specialized training through our new coaching system called VAST, which is the Venture Accelerator System for Trades. That's really specialized coaching, mostly from you, on how to operate the business a little bit more efficiently, some steps you can take, and those sorts of things, and have in-person quarterly meetings with those organizations that want that next level of help.
Yeah, and this is something they have to want, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to continue to get this podcast if they subscribe. You're going to get this podcast for however long we continue to record the podcast, absolutely free, with zero requirement for you to be here, right? This is if this is something you want, we want to be available for you to be able to provide those extra services, but like we're not going to require it from anybody. So I think that's important too, right? Is that truly we want to be helpful, and we sleep better knowing that we've helped you, that we're providing some service and value to you that lets things go well, as opposed to just trying to monetize any possible thing that's out there. I mean, honestly, Job-Dox was built for that very reason. We needed to help our own company not allow things to slip through the cracks. At the same time, we had something that was pretty cool, and we thought, this needs to be out in the market so that they could, capture it and touch it and do some things with it. The reality was we didn't market it as well as we should have. We could have pushed and banged the drum a little bit more, and we didn't do it that same way. And so, there's some things that we could have done better on the marketing side that would have really just blown this thing up. But our goal has always been we want to be helpful and not be pressure in those kind of situations. So who do you think the podcast will benefit? Like, are there certain trades, certain verticals, certain individuals that we think would benefit from listening to the podcast?
I don't know if it's a particular industry that would benefit more than anyone else, but I really think it probably benefits project managers who are really trying to contemplate, do I want to do this on my own, right? People who are familiar with the industry know they like what they do, but want to learn how to be better business owners, right? Because I mean, we saw it with your dad, right? My grandfather, really good plumber, really wonderful man, not a great marketer, business owner, those sorts of things, right? He wanted to touch every single project himself, right? And to be a successful home service business owner, you've really got to be able to figure out what to delegate and what you need to focus on. And hopefully, this podcast will be a resource for that person who maybe thinks the same way, right?
Sure. Sure. And I've said that all the time, right? And like, I think that is a very big reality. We haven't been able to scale what we're doing with me having to touch every project that Mr. Restore has. And the reality is you wind up in a position where you don't always know exactly what's going on in a project, but you trust your team if you've built the processes out correctly and you've put them in a place where they can, like I said yesterday on some stuff we were recording for social media, one of our reconstruction managers for Mr. Restore, Jake, is spectacular at the construction side of things, and he really likes helping. But one of the things that's important and significant to me is there are numerous times that people have called the office saying, "Hey, I need to speak with Jake, the owner." And I love that, because the reality is that means he's handling and taking care of the business and the customer as well as he possibly can, and they perceive him as being the owner of the company. And that's amazing to me. I think that says a lot about how he's doing it. And so I think it's important for those that are going to listen to this podcast to understand about building out a team that functions that same way. And so hopefully we can help them. Even if project managers aren't going to be entrepreneurs, project managers can learn how to be a better project manager for the company they're working for. And that may lead them to decide to want to do this on their own later. But they may help this company that they're working for become even more valuable. Maybe they want to stay there and lead that company. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. What other thoughts do you have about who we're reaching?
I don't have anything specific that comes to mind. I'm just really excited to, get this resource in front of some people and start helping again, right?
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Any last thoughts you would share with anybody right now in regard to the relaunch of the Business Aspirin podcast?
Reach out to us, right? Particularly if there's a topic you want to hear. We've got a Rolodex full of wonderful minds that can help shed some light on a lot of different things. And if there's a topic that's really bothering you, leave a comment, send us an email. We're happy to take that into consideration and maybe put a show together around it.
Yeah. And if you'd like to be on the podcast,
yeah, absolutely.
For the same reason, reach out and let us know exactly what's, what you would like to discuss, and who you are and what value you bring. And let's get you on here. Maybe we wind up with somebody that's running a, $800 million service industry company, because there's some of those that exist.
Sure.
And maybe we get a chance to talk to some of those. And I've got a couple of buddies that hopefully will be able to get on the podcast that run some pretty substantial HVAC companies. And we'll see what happens. But Tyler, I appreciate you being on today and just chatting about this with me as we get this relaunch ready to go. And hopefully you're going to be around on most of the podcasts, right? You'll be kind of in the background helping set up the production side and editing these things out a little bit. So Tyler's always going to be available as well on that end. And he may actually host some of these podcasts as we go, because I may be like, nah, I'm not going today. I'm old, crotchety. I don't want to be here. So we'll get this thing rolling and launched, and hopefully we'll see you guys all at some trade shows and some other things, and on social media, and interacting with us on the podcasts. And it's going to be on all the platforms, right? We're going to hit Spotify and YouTube and Apple and all the things, right? We're going to launch it everywhere again.
Yep. Anywhere podcasts are available.
Okay. Well, thank you for the time this morning, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.